The use of medication for many is necessary to improve quality of life. The purpose of this presentation is not to shame individuals for using such medication. We aim instead to suggest that the use of opioids should be closely monitored and hold pharmaceutical companies responsible for fueling the opioid crisis. We also aim to highlight the injustices associated with addiction-based profit. The medical model approach does not fit every health issue. In the case of the opioid crisis, the medical model has actually led to addiction and death of many. To address the opioid crisis, the social model should be used. This model would work to change perception of addiction and reduce the stigma associated with those who fall victim to addiction. This, in turn, would take away blame from individuals and hold the perpetuators accountable.
Opioids release endorphins, our body's feel-good neurotransmitters. This neurotransmitter reduces a person's sense of pain and boosts feelings of pleasure. Some may find themselves constantly seeking the pleasure, which can lead to dependency and addiction. Some manufacturers have been accused of downplaying the addictive nature of opioids and marketing their products to doctors. This is dangerous because it has caused doctors to overprescribe these drugs. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, about 80% of people who use heroin first misuse prescription opioids. In 2010, 81.3% of opioid prescriptions were written per 100 persons. More than 90,000 people died from the opioid overdoses in 2016 and 2017 combined. This is higher than the 58,220 U.S. service members that died in the Vietnam War. I was prescribed Vicodin to manage the pain after surgery that I'd had. The pain relief was amazing, and I started taking more than prescribed to maximize the effects. Unfortunately, this is what led me to desire more and more of the drug to keep myself going. I started using it every day, and once I'd finished my prescription, I sought out another alternative. A few friends of mine knew a guy that sold heroin, so I gave that a try. The health impacts of my opioid use started to get really bad. I developed abscesses all over my arms that I thought would go away on their own, but they didn't. I went to this music festival and bought a few Suboxone, in which I thought would hold me over for the weekend. It didn't, and I ended up losing a few. I ended up taking so many other drugs and tried to desperately find the ones that I'd lost. I was digging in the trash cans, in the mud. It was pathetic. All I wanted to do was be an honest man. I wanted to tell my friends and family the truth. I wanted to be a real person and stop living in the fog and haze of the drug.
My girlfriend started using a while ago. I was trying to get her to go get some help, but she wasn't budging. At the same time, she kept telling me to try some, that it wasn't that bad. I trusted her with almost everything else, so I decided, why not trust her on this one? I thought it would say it a one-time thing and it would stop there, but it did not stop there. I did it with her a few more times, and it got to a point where I couldn't stop myself. It started having effects on my work life, my social life, and just focusing on simple tasks during the day became extremely difficult. I was struggling to get off. I wanted to get help and get clean, but I couldn't shake the want for another hit, and my girlfriend wasn't attempting to get help either. I'm stuck in a situation where it's always around me or on my mind, and help seems so far away.
Life was very difficult growing up. My parents were both alcoholics. I remember always feeling like something was wrong with me. I took on a very negative sense of self by watching my parents' addiction. That is what the disease of addiction sounds like to me. A voice inside my head always telling me, you will never be good enough. I ended up starting to experiment with drugs and alcohol at a young age. I was snorting prescription painkillers at age 17, which led me to be physically dependent on opioids. I would steal them from my parents, and when I couldn't get more from them, I would steal them from my friends' parents. They were always around and easy for me to get my hands on. I started sniffing heroin when I realized the prescription drugs wouldn't last forever. I have been using heroin for 10 years now.
Current efforts to fight the opioid crisis have been taken on by states. In 2018, Oklahoma sued Purdue Pharma, a major distributor, for understating the potential for addiction from their opioids. The company has been ordered to pay $270 million, which will go towards research and funding for treatment centers. Legislature also exists in the form of Good Samaritan laws. Maryland and Virginia have recently joined about 20 other states in the country with these laws, which prevent someone who's having an overdose or witnessing an overdose from having certain charges put against them. President Trump signed into law in October of 2018 the Support for Patients and Communities Act. This act increased penalties for distributors and manufacturers overselling opioids, and also allowed for Medicare money to be used to fund large treatment centers, which previously was not allowed. However, it has been criticized for not requiring any training for doctors on the warning signs of potentially addicted patients or lowering the limits of first dosages.
If you or someone you know is struggling from an opioid addiction, call the numbers on the screen below.